glad you're here today. My name is Rhonda Gowler-Greene, and I live in Michigan just like you, but I live down in the southern part of the state, and you're up north about 3 hours away. Today I want to talk to you about what it's like being an author and how hard it was for me to become an author, and also how ideas become books. This was me when I was 2. Do you think I could read when I was 2? No, most people can't when they're 2, but I really wanted to learn how to read. You could tell I couldn't because the book was upside down. I would even carry big fat books around with me. I loved books so much. Now, because I love books so much, I'm so excited to be a children's book author. I've had 28 books published, and I feel very lucky about that. I even have some books in foreign editions. Do you happen to know what that top language might be? It's Chinese, and the bottom two there are in Korean, and then I have one in Finnish, so kids in Finland can even read that Pushtig Scoop book. My Fire Bears book is in Polish, and that last one is Here We Come Construction Fun, and it's in French. So pretty cool. I write on paper sometimes, especially when I'm revising my stories and making them better and better. But most of the time, when I'm coming up with new stories, I work at this computer. And I have a stand-up desk. I like to work standing up. And usually it's way messier than that. My favorite thing to do is read. I love books just like when I was little. I have hundreds and hundreds of books at my house. These are just a few shelves of books I have. So there's one, and here's another one, and these are my children's poetry books, not that I've written, but other people. I love children's books, from picture books up to kids' novels. And I have way more shelves than all those too. I play the piano. I love music too. If you've ever heard or read one of my books, you'll notice they're in rhyme. I love rhythm and rhyme, and maybe because I love music so much. I used to be a school teacher many years ago in the state of Kentucky. So what made me want to become an author instead of a teacher? Well, I have 4 kids, and this is an old picture, but when they were very little, I quit being a teacher, and I read and read and read and read to my kids. We did that more than anything. That's Max and Ruby, I'm sure you know. And when we were reading so much, it made me think, how did these books get made? How do you become an author? And I wanted to become an author. My kids are all grown now, and I even have 3 little grandkids and 1 more on the way. And their favorite thing to do is read. So when my kids were little, I would put them to bed and start writing stories. Sometimes I would, like I said, would work on paper, but then I would go to a computer and type it out and get it all ready to go. But then I'd have to know where to send my stories. Where do authors send their stories, do you think? Well, I sent my stories to New York City. Now, not all publishers and editors are in New York, but most are. So that's where I would send my stories. Was it hard getting published? Oh my, very hard. Even harder than I thought it would be. For 3.5 years, I started getting all these rejections letters back. They were called like sorry letters. No, we don't want to buy your story and make it into a book. It was very, very frustrating. My first story, Barnyard Song, got turned down 6 times, so 6 sorry letters it got. But one day the telephone rang, and it was an editor in New York. She had read my story, Barnyard Song, and she said, I really like it. I want to make it into a book. I was so excited. I did a happy dance, hooray, after 3 years and 220 rejections. That was exciting. 2 years later, it came out as a book, Barnyard Song. That was my first book. Remember, I had written some other stories too, and one was When a Line Bends, a Shape Begins. You won't even believe how many rejection letters that story got. a whole lot. 23 times I got a letter saying, nope, they didn't want to make it into a book. But one day the telephone rang. It was a different editor, not that first editor, a different one. And she said, I really like your story about shapes. I want to make it into a book. What do you think I did? Happy dance time. And it came out later, 2 years later, When a Line Bends, a Shape Begins. Now, all my books don't just take 2 years. That's the minimum amount for a picture book to come out. Some of my books took 4 years or 5 years or even 6 years. That is a long time to wait. What do you think I'm doing while I'm waiting? I'm always writing new stories and always hoping they'll get sold and be made into books. Do I pick my illustrators, do you think? No, I don't. Who picks them then? The editors do. These are a few editors I've worked with, and this is another one, and her name is Christy. And Christy decided who would illustrate my At Grandma's Story. She picked Carla Firehammer, whom I've never met, and I thought the characters in the story would be people. But when I got the book, they were what? Dogs. So I never know what my books are going to end up looking like. That book, as you can see, took 4 years to come out. This is another illustrator of one of my books, Daniel Kirk. I've never met him either. I would love to meet him someday. He did the ABC book and also the Push Stick Scoop book. So when an illustrator says, yes, I want to illustrate this book, they start doing sketches. And they do the sketches for the whole story, and then they send the sketches to the editor to make sure everything looks good, and then he or she, the editor, will say, okay, you can start doing your paintings now. Most picture books are 32 up to sometimes 40 pages, so that's a lot of paintings to do, right? So that's why sometimes it takes so many years for picture books to come out because of the art. This is my latest book. It came out last year, The First Men Who Went to the Moon. And it's about the Apollo 11 mission. That's the Saturn V rocket that took them out of Earth's atmosphere. Only actually a small part of that Saturn V went to the moon. And last year was a special year for that book because it was the 50th anniversary of the first moonwalk. These are the first men who went to the moon, the actual guys. So there's Neil Armstrong, in the middle Michael Collins, and Buzz Aldrin. They're very famous. This is the illustrator for the moon book, Scott Brundage. He lives in New York. I've never met Scott either. I would love to someday. I love the watercolor paintings he did for the book. This is the first spread, and a spread is like a 2-page spread of the art. And this is Neil Armstrong coming out of the Eagle for the first step on the moon. I wanted to put this picture in to show you. This is Julian, my grandson, last year when he was in first grade. And I asked Julian, would he put together this Lego set of the Saturn V rocket? And he said he was up to the challenge. It's a very hard set. And amazingly, the Lego people made it 1,969 pieces because, why? Because they went to the moon in 1969. So how do I get ideas for my books? Well, that's one reason I have so many of those books at my house. Very often when I'm looking at other books and reading them over and over, ideas will spark in my head. This is one book I have at my house, Cowboy Bunnies by Christine Loomis. And it helped me get 3 books published. When I was reading this book, I thought, Christine Loomis put 2 things together that you wouldn't normally think of that go together. Cowboys and bunnies, right? So I thought, what 2 things could I put together? And I thought up firemen and bears. And I wrote a story about it and it became a book, Fire Bears. And I thought again, what about mailmen and monkeys? And I wrote a story about that and it became Mail Monkeys. And I had success with those books, so I thought, well, maybe I'll try it again. What about pirates and polar bears? and that became Polar Bear Pirates. These are some authors that also did the same thing, put two things together. Mo Willems put together dinosaurs and Goldilocks. And this author put together Gingerbread Man and ninjas. And this author put together bears and underwear. So that's a way you can think up ideas for stories. Put two things together that you don't think of normally going together. Another way to think up ideas for stories is what if? I think about that a lot. Usually what if idea has a problem in the story, right? One day I wanted to think of a problem that Santa Claus might have. And I thought, what if Santa got stuck in the chimney? And I wrote a story, and it became this book. It took 4 years to come out, and guess what? I got no sorry letters on that story. Another what if was, I thought, what if a doctor got sick? And I wrote a story about that, and it became a book called Doppet's Dr. Kate. Now, I didn't think Dr. Kate would be a squirrel. I thought she would be a person, but the illustrator made her a squirrel, and I love it. Then I thought, what if two little creatures scare kids at night? I was imagining them to look like little brown teddy bears, but the illustrator illustrated them like this. And that was the only book I was like, I didn't know if I liked the pictures too much. I like them now, but I was very surprised. I was imagining, like I said, to look like little brown teddy bears. Bugbear is the one that looks like a little man, and Bugaboo is the little green character. They're actually little in the book. And by the end, the kids scare them away. These two books sparked an idea in my head. These are great books. How I Became a Pirate and Library Lion. I have them at my house. I didn't write them, right? And I thought, what if I put them together? What if I put a pirate in a library? And the first thing I did was think of a lot of pirate words. If you want to write a story about a pirate, that's what I would suggest. Start thinking up pirate words. There are even pirate dictionaries online, and I looked at them too. I worked months on this story. I wanted to make it really good. I wanted to make sure it would sell and become a book. I worked and worked on it. In my computer file, I have 37 times I revised it. 37 times I changed it and made it better and better. Revising is what I just said. Take a line and you read it, you think, can I make that better? I spend more time revising than I do writing a first draft of a story. It makes your writing really strong when you revise. I use these two tools. I use a synonym finder, and I have one right here. It's really big. This is a synonym finder I like to use. Look how thick it is. It's full of words. That's what authors love to do. We love to play with words, right? And you don't have to use that book. And you could go online. There's thesaurus.com you could use. And the blue book there I use is a rhyming dictionary. When I was your age, I didn't even know rhyming dictionaries existed. So if I wanted to look up the word lollipop, I would look in there, not for just the word lollipop, I would look up op, because that's the part of the word I'm trying to rhyme. And there's also online different rhyming sites you could look up, so you don't actually have to have the book, a rhyming dictionary. I use the one rhymezone.com. So I got my pirate story all ready to go after those 37 revisions. And I typed it up and got it as an attachment in my computer. And where did I send it? I sent it to New York. Now, I don't send my stories to a lot of different editors anymore. I send all my stories to this person. And her name was Elizabeth. And she's what you call an agent. I've worked with her for a long time, for 17 years. And Elizabeth decides what editors, where to send my stories to what editors. So I got a few sorry letters on my pirate story, but then an editor said she liked it and wanted to buy it, and happy dance time again. The editor chose the illustrator Brian Ajar, and he started doing sketches for the book. And then he did the paintings. This is called the proofs of a book before it's actually put together. And this is where you want to catch any mistakes before it's actually bound. And 2 years later, my pirate book came out. Now, I usually don't get to meet my illustrators, but I did get to meet Brian. He lives in New Jersey, and he was driving through Michigan one time, and he sent me an email and asking if I was having lunch together. So that was really neat to meet him because it's also part of his book, right? Do I still get sorry letters? What do you think? Oh yes, I get lots and lots of rejections and sorry letters still. But do I give up? No, I don't. No. Just within the last year, I've sold 2 more stories, This Music Night and Christmas in the Stable. I don't know who's going to illustrate them yet, but I'm so happy that 2 more stories of mine are going to become books. So I want you to stay tuned because tomorrow I'm going to tell you how you can make your writing really strong. See you tomorrow.